Your senses are all filters for energy, and your senses are already biased or limited by virtue of the fact that your senses are the senses of a human. I mean, think about it. If you were a bee, you would have different senses, but a human has particular senses. So we hear in a certain spectrum of energy. We see in a certain spectrum of energy. We feel in a certain spectrum of energy. I guess we taste and smell in certain spectrums of energy. So it's already limited. There's a filter there because of our senses. And that's determined in part because of our just our biology. Then add to that there is further filtered because of our cultural conditioning. So the things that you believe are true and accurate and right and wrong and good and bad and all this, it's determined in no small part because of the culture in which you've grown up. And you can try to avoid that, but you can't. There it is. You just run up against it every time. Now you might be able to discover that you have options outside of that, but nonetheless, that those filters are there. So I'm not saying that you're always bound by these filters. I'm just saying that the filters, it's useful to recognize that the filters are there. And then you also have your own personal experience. So there's the cultural, and then there's also your personal experience, which also creates further filters. So if you think about it, when you were first born, you had the biological filters, but you didn't at that point have at least most of the cultural and personal filters. Maybe some of them. Maybe some of those are we could maybe an argument could be made that some of them might be like genetic or epigenetic or something like that. But a lot of them were learned or conditioned after that through experience. This is why you think about how diverse human cultures are. If you know anything about any kind of cultures other than your own, then you probably could recognize there's an enormous diversity, and that maybe they each could be criticized on various grounds as having certain pros and cons, again, from the filter of your current point of view, of your current cultural biases. But nonetheless, all of the cultures that have survived have been successful enough. They're functional enough. So none of them, on those grounds, none of them is right or wrong or good or bad. They're all functional enough. But because we have our own cultural bias, we then tend to think, well, mine is the right way and others are less right. you know. So that's the nature of the filter, is that it creates this bias and a distortion. You don't even know that, for the most part, you don't even know that's going on. You just think that the way that you perceive things is the right way. And then there's also your own personal filters, not just the cultural, but your personal experiences, which have then shaped your personal view of things. So even within your wider culture, you have your own personal biases based on your experiences, and you think, well, this is right and this is wrong. And that's why within let's say American culture, we can have significant political division, right? So we all share a common American culture, whatever that is, but then there can be many divisions within that because of more personal stuff. So we've got all these filters going on. But what's really there is, let's just say, raw energy. So the raw energy is not good or bad or right or wrong or pleasant or unpleasant. I mean, think about that. So think about pleasant and unpleasant. A lot of us will think, well, what I think is pleasant is just pleasant, like universally so, and what I think is unpleasant is universally unpleasant. Actually, that's not true at all. I mean, different cultures will think that different things are pleasurable or unpleasurable. Different individuals within a culture will think that things are either pleasurable or unpleasurable. Different species might think that different things are pleasurable or unpleasurable. So it's not that something is objectively pleasurable or unpleasurable. It's determined by the filters. So so our filters are what make up our map. So if you're functioning from the map and you think that you've exhausted all possibilities, all options, then you're mistaken because actually your filters have virtually eliminated almost all other options. So you're blind to them as long as you're just focused on your existing filters. If you think that your map is the territory, then you're just ignoring almost everything else, which is almost everything.